Georgia going to Ole Miss this time. 3:30 Eastern, ABC. Ole Miss, man, everyone was saying going into the season, yourself included, or yours truly included rather, that this was the year for a national splash. And it still could be. Now you've made it a little bit difficult on yourself with the losses to Kentucky and the loss to Ole Miss, but still, I think 10-2 Ole Miss with a win over Georgia would get you in the college football playoff, but remains to be seen. Got to get it done first. Lane Kiffin said something at his press conference this week that I thought was right on the money. Speaking to their college football playoff path, speaking to what they want to accomplish, he's like, if you want to do anything in the postseason or in the SEC, it still goes through Georgia. Like Lane Kiffin isn't, somehow kidding himself that they can, somehow get around these powers in the SEC. And that's not what Lane Kiffin's looking for either. Like, he came to Ole Miss to make Ole Miss a power. It's a big reason why they did what they did in the portal this past cycle. Like, they went and got some big boys up front to try and match up with the Georgias, with the Bamas, with the LSUs of the world. Do they stack up in this game against Georgia? This is the ultimate litmus test, I believe, for everything we thought was true about Ole Miss going into the season. College football sickos, welcome home. We've been expecting you. Make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. No hot takes, no clickbait, no traffic for traffic's sake. Just ball the way that you want it talked about the greatest sport on the face of planet Earth. Want to make sure y'all know this show brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. Use code HARDCOUNT, $5 in lineups, gets you $50 in promo funds. A great way to maximize your college football Saturday. Back to the prediction. Now for Georgia, man, I can't figure them out. Not that I can't figure them out. Like, I can't figure out where they're at. Because I think we all know Georgia's a really freaking good team. I've said it now a couple of times, both on my social channels and on this very platform, on the On3 YouTube channel. I've said I think they have a championship-level roster. Well, Carson Beck and the interceptions, yeah, Carson Beck threw a couple picks. We'll talk about it. But Carson Beck also going into the year played well enough a season ago to get Georgia to the SEC championship game and to make, I think, everybody and their mother believe going into this season he was the number one quarterback potentially coming off the board in the NFL draft. Now, I don't think that's still going to be the case, but I'm just saying now, it's not like we haven't seen Carson Beck deliver. He has. We're just not seeing it to the same degree that we would hope for at this point in the season. So going back to what I was saying, Georgia's roster isn't the concern. The concern for me is like, well, when do we see like Monstar Georgia come out? Because we see it against Texas, and that's awesome. I love to see it again in the big spots, and you're on the road, and everyone's doubting you, whatever. But like, what about when you play the Floridas and the Auburns and Mississippi States of the world? Like, why don't you just go Jason Kelsey to Heckler's iPhone then? Where is that at? Does it show up in this spot? Because I think for this game now, Georgia, yeah, they're favored, and yeah, they beat the brakes off Ole Miss a season ago, but you are going on the road. And this is a team now in Ole Miss that I have to believe should have the attention of Georgia. And if they don't, this game will get very, very interesting. And we'll find out quick, fast, and in a hurry. So we just mentioned it. And it's going to be the talking point all week long for anyone with a microphone or rights to call them, whatever. Carson Beck, man, what's up with the interceptions? Hey, can Carson Beck avoid turning the football over so they can beat Ole Miss? Fair question. And I don't think that it's the wrong question to ask, but I do think there's more to that discussion to be had. Because I think we see Carson Beck throw a pick and we say, what is he doing? Bonehead move. Yeah, but Kirby Smart also says in his press conference, like, Carson Beck, all but like 3 or 4 times, is making the right decision with the football. Now, the unfortunate part is those 3 times, it ends up being an interception. So it is what it is. Ole Miss now has a top 2 sack rate in college football. What does that mean? More than likely, they're going to try to get after Carson Beck. So that's kind of, I think, the question I want to ask in relation to Carson Beck's interceptions. Those 3 picks he threw against Florida, all 3 of those had a little bit of pressure. Some more than others, but it sped up the shot clock for him a little bit. Now, he still got greedy, still tried to make a throw he probably shouldn't try to make. Aaron Murray had a great breakdown on his channel, just saying essentially Carson Beck needs to take what the defense gives him. But does speeding up the shot clock on Carson Beck, like Florida did, does Ole Miss have success doing that and maybe get themselves a couple extra possessions? Because we'll say this now, you cannot give Jackson Dart and Lane Kiffin at their place some extra bullets and expect to win the football game. It worked against Texas, and I think that was a massive anomaly because of how well your defensive line played. If Carson Beck throws 3 picks against Ole Miss, I don't think Georgia wins this football game. Now, I also don't know that he throws 3 picks, so we'll leave it at that. The question I think in relation to all this that I also want to ask is, can we call the offense in a certain way to help Carson Beck cut down on those poor decisions? Now, this is not me telling you that I should be the OC at Georgia. Mike Bobo knows what he's doing over there, all right? But I do think it's fair to maybe at least start the conversation of like, hey, can we just have the more like residential / backroads version of this offense? Not saying you minimize it, not saying you dumb it down or anything like that. But what I am saying is whenever there is potential for some mistakes, what do? You cut out the stuff that was causing those mistakes. I'm not saying you cut out plays the playbook, but maybe we just call a little bit more of a conservative style of offense, because as good as Ole Miss is, I think that Georgia's roster is still better. I still think that Georgia has better players. I don't think one portal cycle is enough to just fix the gap that was there from a talent level between Ole Miss and Georgia. So that goes back to the question. Can you just keep from making those big mistakes? And can you help him as a play caller have just a more minimized, what's the right way to say this? Have a more cut down level of options here to where when he feels pressure, the throw is the check down. The throw isn't the over the middle dig route or whatever it ends up looking like. Again, you can't spot Ole Miss points. Now, for Ole Miss and the way that they score points now, it's not just them being able to run the football that I think would scare you if you're Kirby Smart in that defense. What scares you is what they can do off of running the football. Because we talk a lot about, Jackson Dart, and then they hung 60 on Arkansas, and a lot of that was because they threw the football at like a ridiculous level and threw for over 500 yards. But Ole Miss is a setup kind of team. Like what they'll do here is in their RPO offense, to just try and give you a quick inside football look here, the RPO system is for the most part, a pre-snap look as to how many defenders the defense has in the box to stop the run. If you don't have enough defenders in that box, well, then we like our guys to go block how many guys you have. Again, we have more blockers than you have defenders, so we should have success running the football. Can Georgia consistently give the proper box count and be able to stop Ole Miss running the football? Because if you stop them from running the football, you feel a lot better about your chances to minimize explosive plays. That is how Ole Miss will just absolutely just euthanize you. That is where they get after you. They are averaging 11 yards a pass, also second best in college football. So for Georgia now, I think Kirby Smart said it best. He's like, you can't make it about scheme with Ole Miss. Because if it comes down to scheme now, they got a quarterback that's super experienced, super dialed in, knows where to go with the football, knows where to go with when things get a little bit hairy. Like he makes good decisions more often than not. If you make it about scheme, they like their scheme. That plays into Ole Miss's hands. And Kirby Smart loves to say this. It's about blocking. It's about tackling. Can Georgia block and tackle? Because here's the deal. You can run jet sweep and have the numbers you want, but it doesn't matter if you have the numbers you want if our defenders meet your blocks with destruction of 1,000 killer bees, and then we got problems, and then we're getting home making the tackle for a loss. You got 3rd and 13. Advantage Georgia. Now, if they can't do that, again, going back to the championship edge, if Georgia rolls out there like they did in that first half against Florida and in that first half against Auburn or in that first half against Mississippi State or finishes the game the way they did against Mississippi State, there's going to be some problems. There's going to be some problems because we've seen now at different points now, speaking to what Ole Miss does effectively, the explosive plays, Georgia hasn't been all that awesome against the explosive play this year. DJ Lagway got him for one. I understand there wasn't the starting defense for Georgia in the game because of some guys that missed the first half. I get it. Still, that happened. Mississippi State goes for over 300 yards through the air against you. The Alabama game is what it is. But I'm just saying now, if Georgia cannot stop the run and does not meet this game with the proper physical edge, Ole Miss is going to make this thing very, very uncomfortable. Now, I do think college football has been a headache all year long to try and get a read on, in large part because of the portal, in large part because of the conference realignment. And what I mean by that is like we all were saying how good Ohio State was early in the year, right? And how bad Oregon was. They play, Oregon beats them. And then we're talking about Texas being the most complete team in college football. Georgia's been a little bit lackluster, like they played Kentucky to a 1-point game. And then Georgia goes into Austin and beats them by 2 scores. So some of that's the madness of college football. Some of that is, I think, very much so the madness of what 2024 college football is. And so with that being the case and how poorly Georgia looked against Florida, I think Kirby Smart, throughout the week of practice, has had a little bit more of the locker room's ear than maybe he would even usually have, which I have to believe is a lot. In picking this game, I don't think Georgia is as dominant as they were a season ago, but I am going with the more consistent variable here. And the consistent variable to me is Kirby Smart in the month of November. Georgia has not lost a game in November since 2020, which was the COVID year when they lost to Florida. So bottom line here, when circumstances are quote-unquote normal, Georgia's usually going to be a force when it comes time to play their best football. So I think Georgia gets dialed in. I think that the Florida game, you would hope if you're a Georgia fan, is kind of a like, hey, wake-up call. I think Georgia wins. I think it's relatively high scoring. I'll take Georgia 34, Ole Miss 28. So we're still taking Georgia to win and cover, but I don't think it is just a total blowout like it was in Athens a season ago.